So let's continue our conversation about emotions and the great things that emotions do for us during this time period, right? We've talked before about how there's so many emotions circling around, and at one point we have this one, and another one, this one surfaces in the midst of being feeling guilty or shameful about this, or feeling like I'm going to cry and break down. Suddenly, this wonderful emotion of anger and frustration surfaces. And what do we do with that? We know what we do when we get angry at things. There's a specific part of it. We know that something happened and I can get angry because the stuff I bought at the store, I left in the cart and I didn't bring it home. And I get so angry at myself for doing that. Or somebody does something at work and causes you to have to go back and redo something. You get angry about a specific issue. It's tangible. You can point to it. All right, one of the kids makes a mess on the floor and you get angry and you got to clean this up and you do those things. Or somebody comes in late and you're expecting them at a different time. What you have to get angry about when you go through a divorce is so much, oh my, because all these other things surface that you remember that you were going through this relationship that you used to get angry about. And now you start to remember those things. Or maybe it was that impactful one moment when you realized your partner was suddenly leaving or had an affair, and you can get as angry as you want at that. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. It makes sense. I would be concerned if you didn't get angry at times when you go through this, for whatever reason that surfaces that anger that comes within you. What we often get confused with anger is frustration. Now, frustration kind of comes before angry, right? We have those moments of anger that just suddenly surface. When I was driving down here can't imagine somebody on the highway cutting me off doing 90 miles an hour, and I'm trying to figure out how to get here. And I got angry at that moment, but I didn't let that anger continue. And that's the danger with anger, right? Once it surfaces, it's a living thing. It doesn't want to let go. It breathes within you, and your system gets wired, and your blood starts to surface, and your facial features start to change. And it wants to stay in that state. It doesn't want to be decreased. But let's back up and talk about frustration for a second. What does it mean to be frustrated? We all get frustrated about stuff. Frustration comes when we have expectations that are not met. And now I expected you to be here on time and you're not, and now I'm frustrated with you. And when I get frustrated, this is what happens. It starts to lead to anger. And that's part of what we look back on with divorce in a relationship. I was frustrated at so many things that were going on with my partner that used to get me so angry. But we get frustrated because our expectations, we think that the other person's going to be doing this. We think that the other person should be mindful of the fact that I'm trying to get some better place in our relationship and you're not even connecting to it. We get so frustrated with that. What else do I have to do to tell you that this is important to me? And I remember a couple I was working with that one of the stumbling blocks they had were household responsibilities and chores, that it would surface so many times throughout the session. And finally, one partner suddenly had that epiphany that comes, and he said to his partner, he said, I think I get it now. It's not the chores, it's that you expected me to do it and I wasn't. And in those moments that happen, the other partner said, yeah, I counted on you to do that and you didn't. I don't care. It's not the laundry. It's not the trash. It's just that I had this expectation that it would have been done. And if I don't see it done, that means that I have to do it. And we get frustrated with people like that, and it turns into anger. Now, one of the things about frustration that is really tricky is we tend to blame. How do I get rid of my frustration? I blame somebody. I can blame my partner for the fact that you didn't do this. And that's what's getting me so frustrated. But the blame then leads to anger. So we're going to do one of those little chemistry equations, right? We're going to pour in some frustration. And in order to make the frustration bubble over, we're going to pour in some blame. And now we've got this combination of stuff that spews out, which is what we call anger. Now what do we do with it? It's a mess all over the place. And it's the same when you go through a divorce and you're trying to figure these things out. You get angry. I think I mentioned earlier about one of my clients who used to get so angry about her partner not signing those divorce papers. And for whatever reason, that partner was just doing it, whether they were trying to be spiteful, whether they didn't want the relationship to be over. But that frustration that one partner had about not signing those papers, I can't blame somebody else. I can only blame this person. And that gets me angry because it brought up all the old stuff that I was dealing with in that relationship. And now this poor person was sitting there getting so angry and gets so angry, and the other person, and I just reminded them, I said, you think the other person who hasn't signed is getting as angry as you? No. And that gets me even more angry. Why aren't they angry? I said, because the anger has taken over you and you can't do anything about it. So how do we manage through all that stuff? How do we keep the frustration and the anger to a place that we can manage? Because it does surface. Going through a divorce is not something that's pleasant. You should be angry at times about being in this situation. I now have to take care of the kids. I now have to work extra hard because the finances aren't coming in like they used to. I now have to get a lawyer. I now have to go to court. I have to go contact this one and this one. There's so much more dumped on me. Then anger makes sense, right? I'm frustrated, I'm angry, but how do we manage that? Anger doesn't work with ice cream sometimes. We don't tend to eat ice cream or have donuts when we're angry. We tend to throw ice cream. We tend to throw donuts when we're angry. We don't do the things that help us because it's a powerful emotion, just like frustration. But remembering that I'm angry because of a certain thing just lets us define what it is that's gotten us angry. But also, as we start to talk about how do we manage anger and frustration, it's an emotion I can control. I can get myself to a better place. And the conversation we're going to have is, how do I manage my anger? How do I anger my frustration in order to allow myself to rise up again? Because now I'm at 40 feet and 30 feet, and I want to keep breathing. But if I'm so angry, I can't breathe. It sucks up all the oxygen in the room, and it's such a powerful rage that it's hard to subside. Anger wants to live. It doesn't want to just go away. And the more you do it, the more your system's going to be triggered into going anger. So anger is a part of divorce. There's no question about it. It's just how do we manage it in a way that allows us to rise up a little by little till we get to a place in the surface that we could feel we can rest. And it's okay sometimes, right? Maybe I'm at 40 feet and I can't go up right now. I can't go up another 10 feet. I can't climb up another step of the mountain. That's all right. As we go through all these conversations, I want you to realize too, if you're in a place sometimes and I just can't do it anymore, fine, don't. As I said earlier, it's not a linear progression. A doesn't always equal to B, doesn't always equal to C. You might get to A, B, and C, and then suddenly you stop and you realize, you know what? I'm done. This is exhausting, and I can only do so much. Do it. That's okay. Take that pressure off yourself and realize, you know what? I'm just going to stay here and breathe for a while. I've got oxygen in my tank. And if I just have to just breathe for a couple of weeks and just be where I'm at, that's okay. We'll get there. You will get there. I can guarantee you will get there. You're not going through all this just to be the same when you come out of it. So take some time when the anger comes and you have to rest afterwards. And in our conversation, we're going to be talking about how do I manage it in a way that helps me better? How do I manage my frustration that allows me to rest or to maybe move up a little bit further? So let's have a conversation about how do we deal with the anger and the frustration that surfaces when we're going through this divorce. As I mentioned earlier, there's a difference. Frustration is having expectations and needs that aren't met. And we respond to it with our physical body. We get upset, we clench our fists, we get tense, right? All that tension builds up a lot more stress within us. That's hard to manage when we're always tense and we're walking around like this and we're so angry because this thing hasn't been done by my partner who thought I would be able to get this done with, or the kids are doing this or work's doing that. Recognizing that frustration comes from those unmet expectations. So part of this is recognizing what's realistic. What is realistic when you're dealing with your partner or your life in general now? What are those expectations like? I'm directionally challenged. In order for me to drive from where I live to down here to do this, I knew that I would not be able to get here on one straight path. I knew that there were times where I would probably miss the turn, miss an exit, go from one place to the next. I don't have a great phone, so I don't have a great GPS system either. I still have a fold-up map that I use, which is not easy when you're trying to figure out where you are. So I do have to catch myself sometimes to realize my expectations of taking a 3-hour drive probably is going to take 4 or 5, not even counting in traffic, or not even traffic jams or an accident that comes. So I have to lower my expectations and realize I'm not going to get here in 3 hours. I'm not even going to come close. And it actually took me 5.5. So I thought I was in the range of what I would usually get when I have to get someplace. I only made 2 wrong turns. But if I had the expectation that I would get here by 3 hours and what I was going to be able to do when I got here, I would have been so frustrated and angry in the car that I probably would have gotten here in such an angry state that as soon as I got out and checked into the hotel, I would have been mad at the man who was just checking me in, and all he was doing was just trying to get me to my room. By keeping our expectations low, realistically looking at our partner who we're going through this divorce with, because that's where a lot of the anger comes from, especially when we're trying to settle this and move things forward. Are those expectations from something that we thought they would be doing? Did they do these things before? So sometimes when we hear about the fact that in the case of not signing divorce papers, I did ask that client, I said, well, is that something that your partner would have done before? Oh, no, never. This stuff was nothing. I said, well, then we're expecting them to do something different this time. Just keeping the expectations low, minimizing. This all fits into that circle of trying to work through this, that I can't get this part taken care of, and that's okay. This is a process. This is a journey. And I know there's times when you want this journey to be over, and that's when you just pull off to the side and rest for a bit. So if we keep our expectations low, we can keep our frustrations low, but also recognizing what was within my power. What can I control here? Can I control whether somebody at work is going to do their job? Probably not. I can't control whether the kids are going to do this or not. I can't control that. Can't control how my partner is going to react to the different things that go back and forth in a divorce process. I can only control how I respond to things. Life happens. We get caught up in stuff sometimes, but it's out of our control. And if we recognize that when I was driving down, there was an accident and I went from mile 28 to mile 29 in 45 minutes. I can't control it. I can't do anything about it. And when I was looking around some of the cars that I could see people just getting angry and holding on to their steering wheels, really frustrated or trying to navigate through the traffic, I can't go anywhere. I'm stuck. And when you go through a divorce, sometimes you just get stuck. You can't control it. The only thing we can control is how we react to it. So if we keep our expectations low, realistic, let's look at what we're expecting from someone and from ourselves. We often get angry and frustrated at ourselves because we didn't do this, or we should have gotten the house taken care of, or I should have contacted the lawyer there because there's so much stuff you have to do because now it's just you. There's not 2 people trying to work through life. Now it's just you and all the other stuff you have to bring. So sometimes you get angry and frustrated with yourself. It's okay. Just recognize that maybe my expectations might be a little bit higher than I thought they should be. But if I can keep them down here, if I can minimize them enough to realize that I really can't control this, maybe I won't get as frustrated. And my frustration won't lead me to blaming somebody. And my blaming won't lead to anger, which just gets me in such a negative emotional state that I'm not sure I can control it anymore. And now I'm living with an anger from something that happened over here. Why am I getting so angry about something that happened here? I have to start to let that go. And the sooner that starts to happen with you, you'll start yourself realizing, you know what? Yeah, this is still frustrating. Yeah, I still get angry about things. I get angry about what my partner did. I get angry that I am put in this situation and it's not fair. Yeah, that's okay. But just remember, your expectations, if we keep them in a grounded way that works for you, some of that frustration and anger will start to decrease and you'll start to rise up again on the surface, right? You might maybe move from 40 to 30, or maybe we can get a leap up to 20 feet and you're starting to breathe a little better. And maybe now it's not 2 quarts of ice cream, maybe it's just 1. And I'm starting to feel a little bit better about myself and I'm doing okay because I'm not letting that anger and that frustration take over so much that it's pulling me in a negative way. I don't want to keep going down. There's going to be moments, no question, that you're going to drop down again another 10 feet. Things happen. It's not an easy process. And you think, okay, well, we should get this all taken care of. And I can't believe my partner did this, or I can't believe I have to deal with this now because of this divorce. Take a breath, take a moment, just resettle yourself and realize, all right, what are my expectations? Realistically, did I expect this to be settled within this time period? Did I realistically expect me to be back to the way I was after all this? No, right? Give ourselves a little bit of a break. Let yourself breathe for a little bit and realize my frustration doesn't have to control me. I don't have to blame others to get rid of my frustration. I don't have to let my anger surface so much that it takes control over me. I can get angry. Nothing wrong with anger. Anger is a good emotion. It's good to get that blood pumping once in a while. It's good to get that out. It's all right. But recognize I can control it. I can tell myself, I'm not going to let this define me. I'm not going to be an angry person. I'm going to be a person who can manage my anger in a way that'll allow me to keep moving forward in a better place.